Dear friends, when I see you, I remember my own youthfulness. And I regret that I am not so young. I am over 40 now. Well, believe or not, it's up to you. My subject that I choose for this evening, to me, very important for the youth, because I am working with youth more than 50 years, really. Although I am over 40, I said over 40. How much over is up to you. But 50 years I did work with the youth, of course with the Baha'i youth all the time. Because it was my field, because I loved teenagers and children, of course, and then the youth. And Persian Baha'i youth, they are witness that I always working with them. I had classes with them. I learned many things from them, really. I learned many things from them. From their behavior, from their thoughts, from their many things I learned. Now, before going to my topic, my subject for this evening I chosen by myself, very psychological and very scientific, and this is free will that we have from the Baha'i point of view. But before going to that, I would tell you a short story about my coming to Canada in '53. It was my first visit to the West. I came from the United States, from America, after dedication of the temple, straight up to Canada. Canada was unknown for me in those days. They took me, I would not mention the city, one town I should say, to the 19-day feast. It was so spiritual meeting that I never thought that in the West I can see this kind of spirituality. Because I came directly from Iran and a short stay in the United States, and I was not familiar with the Western Baha'is in those days. And when I saw this meeting so spiritual that I said to myself, I recalled the guardian's words that he said, the Western Baha'is, even spiritually, they are equal to Eastern Baha'is, not only in material ways. Well, anyhow, they had beautiful 19-day feast. Not many Baha'is in that meeting, because it was a small town. After official program was finished, a young lady came to me, sat down next to me and said, "Are you hand of the cause?" I said, "Yes, people say so." Because it was 53, and you know I was appointed hand of the cause in 51, December 51, at the end 51. I said yes. He said, "All right, please go to my husband. He's sitting in the third row and close this and that, but don't look behind yourself, because then he would understand I'm talking about him to you. And advise him to sleep more than he does now." I said, "Why?" He said, "Well, there is a reason." Oh. I said, "All right." I went to this man, I said, "Allah-Akbar." He said, "Allah-Akbar." I said, "How are you?" He said, "Quite well." I said, "How is your sleep?" He said, "My wife said something to you?" I said, "Well, your wife or something, I'm asking just how many hours you sleep." He said, "It's a very strange question." And being Persian, although I was educated in Russia, of course, for a long time, 16 years, but still I was not familiar with the Western atmosphere and spirit. He said, "It's a very strange question." I said, "Why?" I'm asking. He said, "It's my private life." I said, "Private life, you are right. It's your private life. Still, I wait for answer. He said 4 hours. 4 hours. I said, why 4 hours? He said, because the beloved guardian resting 4 hours only. I follow him. I said, who told you? I didn't know that. Really, I didn't know. I said, who told you that? He said, pilgrims. Pilgrims. And besides that I follow the guardian, I don't have time because I am secretary of local assembly, I am working in my office, I am new Baha'i, so many books that I have to read, writings, because I am new Baha'i. Without reading the writings, you cannot be a good Baha'i, a deep Baha'i without reading the writings. I don't have time to sleep more than 4 hours. I said, you try a little bit more. He looked at me and said, what kind of hand of the cause you are? I said, well, I'm newly appointed and I don't know what kind of hand. Wallah. I said, then I said, my dear friend, don't be upset because some people are wise, some are otherwise. Maybe I am in second category. Don't be upset. He said, do you want me to bring text from Baha'u'llah that he says, you must not sleep? I said, oh, we have this kind of text that we must not sleep? Please bring that. He brought me Baha'i prayers, opened that, he said, look what Baha'u'llah says. How could I go to bed when the eyes of your lovers are vacant? You know that prayer before going to bed. Well, I said, you are right. You do whatever you want. I came to the lady. He said, what he said? I said, my dear lady, I was your guest. Why you did that to me? Why you did that to me? Leave your husband free. Let him do whatever he wishes. He is right. She said, you are hand of the court. Well, I had my prize from both sides. He said, what kind of undercover? And he said, undercover. But he said better, because he said, what kind of hand? I said, I don't know. But she said, hand of the court. Well, anyhow, I said something to her that I'm not going to tell you, because it's very secret. Between a gentleman and a lady. All right, now we go to my topic. I have time, don't worry. They gave me 30 minutes, and I watch my watch. Yes. In this case, I am exact. Now, this is my second participation in the International Youth Conference. Second. In the whole my life. I was in many summer schools, winter schools, and in many gatherings, Baha'i meetings, but for the youth, special for the youth, International Youth Conference, this is second one. One was in Champaign, Illinois, in the United States. In Champaign, and I tell you that still I am intoxicating with that champagne. Well, it was very strong champagne, really. Although I don't know what is champagne. I never tasted, believe me, I never tasted. But that champagne was something. And now I see this second one, I say, my God, all youth conferences are good. it's not only champagne. Because really I see you, although from far, but I can feel your love to the faith and your shining faces. Believe me, I can see that. I can feel that by intuition, by Baha'i intuition. I can feel that. It's coming the waves to my heart. Don't think that this is fanaticism that I have. No, it's realism. Your love has some waves that is coming to my heart. Like a small radio, I can have that and take that. Believe me. That is, I love you and I love you all in such way that I cannot explain by words. You can feel that. Now, the most important, this is my subject, and I beg you to be very careful listener till the end. I am not Cicerone. I am not a good orator, a good speaker like Cicerone was in old Greece. But I did my best. I tried to explain my subject to you, and this is to me the most important subject for the Baha'i youth. We are human beings. We are not belonging to vegetable world or to animal world. We are human beings. Why? Why we are human? Because God gave us the most precious gift, that is free will. Free will. It means the human being can do according to his will whatever he wanted to. This is God's gift to us as humans. That is, we are human. We are not belonging to animal world. Although animals have instincts and some kind of very limited will, but it is not free will, because they are, you know better this, because you are students, you are scientists, you are going to the university. I know that you know all these things better than I do. Their will is very limited by their instincts, but we have free will. By free will, it means that a man, by man I mean human, not woman and man. A man can do whatever he wants to. That is free will. This is the gift of God, but in the same time, this free will is the source of all problems in humankind. If this free will be used in good way, in right way, you put your will in good channel, then this is really the gift of God. Like so many people they did that, so many people they put their will in invention, in science, in all good for humanity. But as we say in Persian, Khuda nakunad, God forbid. God forbid. if I mean human beings, they will put their free will in wrong channel, in wrong way, then you will have crime, you will have calamities, you will have problems. All things that you can see now in the miserable world that we have now, it's because of that free will that people put in the wrong way. I can be very merciful to the people, I can serve them, I can work for the peace, or I can be murderer, I can be killer, I can do many crimes, as you see that the world now is in this position. Go back to the guardian's writings and see how the beloved guardian explained Baha'u'llah's words and Abdul Baha's words, and talks if the people would not be educated in principles of God, they will be, I am quoting Abdul Baha, much worse than animals. Because when animals are doing these kind of things that now this human being, most of them they do, nothing. Sometimes when I read the books and then I watch some films of television, some of course, not all, and then I see or I hear or I watch this crime business, what people do, killing, bloodshed, doing this, doing that. I say, oh God, I wanted to be an animal. I wanted to be a cat, a dog, whatever you wish, because they never do these kind of things. Even to their parents, even to their friends. My God, how many crimes in our world, and especially, sorry to say, I am so sorry to say, from young people. From young people. Why? Because they have free will. They can have knife in their hand, their will can do that and kill somebody. They have hand and they have free will to take one bottle of alcohol and drink. And I collected many statistics that I cannot really open to you because it is not worthy for the Baha'i gathering to bring this kind of things up. In one country, this is not my way to name, 1.5 million, according to official statistics, they have alcoholic people, sick, that they wanted always to have this alcohol, otherwise they cannot live, and the government should keep them. You, me, others should work and pay tax and spend for those people, for alcoholics. And this is good, and then drugs, and this hashish, and this and that. Read the Guardian's writings. Read the Guardian's writings, how he is portraying, how beautifully he is portraying for you, picturing for you the situation in our world. You know better, because you are association with your friends. You know what is going on in the world. This is the source of free will. Why animals they don't that? Why animals they are not busy with the sex business, with alcohol, with this, with that, with drugs, with such? Because they do not have free will. They do not have free will. You have free will, for instance, to break the law. There is written 90 miles, for instance, the limit for speed limit. You have free will, you can go 200 miles, for instance. Then you will do crime. How to prevent people? I am not talking about other people because that is not my business. I am talking to the Baha'i youth, to my dear friends, to the people who are so close to my heart. If we, I say we to put myself among the young people, we, you, if we correlate, I am quoting Baha'u'llah and Abdul Baha and the beloved guardian. I never say one word if there is not text. Because I know that Abdul Baha said, whoever is coming to you, whoever, and telling you something, you ask proof from the text. If he doesn't have, then don't believe. Don't believe. Even he says, don't listen to that. And don't argue with him, of course, but don't listen to that. Baha'u'llah says, please go back to the gleanings. Even I know the number 160, the number 160, paragraph 160. The gleanings from the writings of Baha'u'llah. Who did that for us? The beloved guardian. He did that to us to read that, not to decorate our library for that book or other books. He translated this book, Gleanings from the writings of Baha'u'llah. There is this what I tell you now in the Gleanings and the Kitab Aqdas, and I show you the text, paragraph 160, please open the Gleanings and read. If we, Baha'is, you especially, I say you because the young people, they have more strong will. And it's good. It's gift of God given to you. Strong will. God bless you. Have that strong will. Strong will to pioneer. Strong will to go to far places. Strong will to go to isolated places. Strong will to have these sufferings, these persecutions. Strong will to go to martyrdom. That's good. That's God given to you the best gift. But you should, I should, you should too, to correlate your will with the will of God. That's Baha'u'llah's words. Read the Gleanings. What does it mean? Whatever you want to do, first you think, is it in accord with the teachings, with the writings? Did Baha'u'llah say that to do or not? Did Baha'u'llah say don't or do? In other words, this is our liberty, Baha'u'llah said, our freedom, that we should correlate, we should bring in parallel our free will with the will of God. Then Baha'u'llah says, how do you know what is will of God? I have quotations here I can tell you how you should understand what is will of God. He said, read the writings, Read the writings. اقرأوا الألواء لتعرفوا ما هو المقصود. Immerse, he says, yourselves in the ocean of the writings to see what is God's will. Then you correlate your will with the will of God. If your strong will say do this, and Baha'u'llah said don't, I never would do that. I never wanted to put myself, this is my rough translation in his words, in the hand of my enemies. I never wanted to suffer. I never wanted to sacrifice whatever I had. I also wanted to live like others in luxury, in good things that he had. But why I did that? Because God commanded me to do. My will is nothing, is zero, when God's will is there. You can find in the hidden words so many, you can find in the gleanings, you can find in all writings of Baha'u'llah. In one of tablets, Baha'u'llah says, I wanted to give money, to give whatever I have, even to my killer, to qatilaman, to my killer. But because it is not according to the will of God, I won't. He says, I sacrifice my life because God said do that. Two more words. I heard from Afghans. I never saw in the book. I heard from Afghans that once the mother of the beloved Bab, you know, that the mother of the Bab was not believer when he declared himself. Then Baha'u'llah taught her in the faith when she was in Najaf and Karbala. You know that from the history. He used to say, my dearest, you are the only son, the only child that I have, and I love you so much. Why you say you are promised one, that they will kill you? And the answer of the Bab said, my mother, my dear mother, because God told me to do that. God told me that, not me. Then the mother said, but I know these people, they will kill you. He said, I know that before. I know that the end of my life is martyrdom. But what shall I do? God said, announce. God said, do that. You see, manifestation of God also correlating His will with the will of God. When Baha'u'llah was in Sulaimaniyah, you know from Nabi's narrative, he said, I didn't want to come back to Baghdad. Never I thought so. But God commanded me to do, and there is nothing just to obey the will of God. Now, because my dear colleagues also, they wanted to talk to you, I had my 30 minutes, maybe a little less, doesn't matter. But I tell you again, my dearest, whatever you do, you should do according to the will of God. How do you know that what is will of God? Baha'u'llah says, read the writings. Read the writings. The writings, the revelation came just for that, for us to read that. Whatever God said do, do. Whatever He says don't, don't. Why we Baha'is not using alcohol? Why? Because Baha'u'llah said, God said don't. And I tell you, in all religions was like that. It's a quite different matter. Why we are not gambling? Because will of God is not to do. Why we are fasting? Because Baha'u'llah, in other words, God said do that. Why we have obligatory prayer every day? One friend asked me by letter, I don't know who is, But he said, what is different between prayer and writings? There is a great difference between. When you pray, all right, this is Bahá'í prayers, anytime you wish to pray, but writings, to read writings, it means to read Baha'u'llah's tablets, Ishqábád, Tajalliyat, I don't know how in Russian, in English, Tarazat, Tajalliyat, Kitab, and so many writings were revealed by Baha'u'llah. We should read those and understand. Baha'u'llah said, read the writings to know what God wanted you to do. In the presence of the guardian, permit me just 2 minutes. I use all my minutes. In the presence of the beloved guardian, he asked us, Persian friends walking with him in the garden, he said, tell me, friends in Iran, they pray more or they read more the writings? One pilgrim had a sense of humor. He said, beloved guardian, we pray more than reading the writings. He said, why? He said, well, when we are praying, we are commanding God what to do. Protect me, save me, do this for me, do that for me, save my children, please, I am going to give examination, help me. But when we are reading the writings, he said, that pilgrim, God commanding us what to do. Do this, don't do that. It's easier to pray. And the beloved guardian said, smiled. Whoever saw the guardian knows what I am telling about, because really, it was heaven. He said, when you're going back, on my behalf, tell Persian friends, do both. Then he said, balance these two. Pray and read the writings. Allah. Dear friends, it is always a joy for Baha'is in Canada to have Dr. Ali-Akbar Furútan come to visit us. I think if we had kept a record, a tape recording of all the talks he has given in Canada in, I would guess, 40 or 50 years, I think they would consist in audience participation, in raucous laughter, some weeping and gnashing of teeth as he tells of the troubles and problems he's been faced with his Canadian audiences. But I would like to tell you another story about Dr. Furútan that you won't often hear. In fact, I've never heard anybody tell it excepting myself. And I can always count on having a lot of fun in my meetings when Dr. Furútan is here. But this is quite a different kind of a situation. You know, we used to have a summer, winter school at Varqa
in Quebec, not far from Montreal. And it was a marvelous school. People would come from across Canada to go to it. And it was full of fun. And my wife liked this Bolac so much that she just insisted that we buy a house near there so we could go regularly and take all our friends and have that summer school do most of our main teaching. Well, we did this for some years, and there were several of the best teachers, including several hands, who used to come to Bolac, and they would give courses. And there was one hand who used to come. I won't tell you his name at this point, but he used to come and give a talk at the school in the evenings. And he would live with us in our house, and in the mornings he and I would go for a walk. And we went to some lovely places. And one day we were heading out on our usual walk, and it looked like a nice day. But he looked at me and he said, "John, don't you think we ought to take an umbrella?" And I said, "No, it's not going to rain today." So Audrey was there, and she said, "Well, take a raincoat anyway." And I said, "No, we don't need a raincoat. It's not going to rain. Look at the sky. It's a beautiful sky." So we headed out without either raincoat or umbrella. And after we'd gone about 3 miles away from home, suddenly a cloud appeared. And water started dropping down in buckets. And fortunately, there was a nice big pine tree a little down the road, and we ran for that. And we got to it, and its lovely wide boughs protected us from the rain, and we stood there, and this guest of ours kindly turned to me, and he said, "John, do you think the hands have infallibility?" So he has never ceased to rub this into me. And I wonder how many of you know what infallibility is. If I get to the end of my talk, I will take a look at my watch. 2 or 3 looks at it. And if there's still time left, I might tell you something about infallibility. At this time, I want to tell you about some other things. You know, I would love to have time to talk about our beloved Shoghi Effendi. Those of us who served under him for some years, we had the joy of being guided by him and being directed in all things we did. And we had a great love for him. And we used to say a prayer every day. Some of us said it more often than once a day. And I'm going to read it to you. And those of you who are old-timers, like Dr. Furutan, who... He assured us he was, I'm not sure if he said he wasn't over 40 or under 40. But at any rate, he's quite old. And I want to read this prayer. It's a beautiful prayer, and those of us who have been Baha'is for many years, and who used to say this prayer at least every day and often at noon, we hear this and we think of it, and we come together and we say it again and again and again. And I'm going to read it to you now because it brings back the feeling of Shoghi Effendi to those of us who are old-timers, and those of you who aren't quite old enough to be called old-timers. I hope you'll enjoy just this. We cherish the hope that thou, the beloved, will bestow upon Shoghi Effendi all the strength and vigor that will enable him to pursue over a long and unbroken period of strenuous labor the supreme task of achieving, in collaboration with the friends of every land, the speedy triumph of the cause of Baha'u'llah. Friends, that prayer has power, and it does your heart good. And when you could see how Shoghi Effendi was guiding the affairs and directing us, he used to give us plans. I remember when Audrey and I first became Baha'is, we just got under the wire when Shoghi Effendi gave us the first 7-year plan. And at that time, as Lloyd Gardner told us this morning, there were only 2 local assemblies in Canada, Montreal and Vancouver. There weren't even any Baha'is in most of the other provinces. And then Shoghi Effendi came along with the 7-year plan. And he told us what to do and how to do it. And it seemed impossible for us. We had to have an assembly in every province in Canada. And that was a very big undertaking. And so we started out. And we prayed and we taught and we traveled all up and down across the country. And finally we did get that plan completed. And there are many incidents as to how he guided us and how he would write us and wire us and encourage us and beat us on our way. And I wanted to tell you about Greenland. In this first 7-year plan, we had to have an assembly in every province in Canada. Now you know, I'm sure you all know, even those of you who haven't been in the faith very long, that it takes a long time to bring in an assembly in a brand new place, miles away from nowhere. And one thing we had to do, we had to have an assembly in every province, but we also had to build a nucleus of the faith in Greenland. When we looked into that, this was a little later. This was in the year 1948, at the beginning of the 7-year plan. And we learned that there was no way of getting into Greenland And if you were in Greenland, there was no way of getting out. The walls were high. Denmark was owned by the Danish people, and they didn't want people going in or going out. And there was nothing we could do. So this went by for a year or two, and one time we had a cable from the Guardian congratulating us on the fine work we had done in completing goals right across Canada. But he said, you seem to have done nothing whatever in Greenland. And so we on the National Assembly thought about Greenland. What could we do? There was no way we could get in. There was no way anybody in there could get out. And so we would pray a prayer or two and sit there and cross our fingers and go on to the next subject. And then a little while later we get another message from Shoghi Effendi suggesting we do something about that. So we decided we'd better do it right away. And it happened that a year before that, he had given the American Baha'is the assignment of a 10-year goal plan toward getting somebody into Greenland for us. So we wrote her a letter, and she cabled back a loving, nice letter thanking us for our thinking of her, but saying it's not possible for me to do anything for you at all. She said, I pioneered here 10 months ago. I don't know why I came. I can't speak a word of Danish, and I don't know anybody here. I can't get a job, and I'm thinking of returning home. And I thank you for your letter. Would you please pray for me? So we cabled back and thank you, we will pray for you. And we began to pray. And then we had a letter from her. And she said, you'll never guess what's happened to me. She said, I went out for a walk this afternoon, and I saw a woman on the street who looked as though she was ill. And I went to her and asked her if she needed any help. And she went over to a bench that was in the park just there, and she said, oh, if you could get me a cup of tea, that would be fine. So she said, I took her into my apartment, gave her a cup of tea, and found she was a delightful person, and began to talk to her, and she said, you'll never guess who that woman turned out to be. She said she turned out to be the sister of the president of Greenland. And we thought, well, we know that God does assist all those who arise to serve Him. And this looks as though the Guardian has directed some assistance to go to Greenland. And this woman's name was Elsa Fimbo Janssen. And so we were told all about this, and it happened that I was going to Europe the next year, and I wrote to this pioneer friend of ours and to Elsa and asked her to make an appointment with me with the Danish government and the Danish section of that government. And I got over there, and she took me, and we met them, and had a delightful chat with them, and they told us they were terribly sorry. They would love to cooperate with us and help us to get a Dane into the country, but it was not possible. And so we went, there was a meeting, a Baha'i meeting of the Baha'i pioneers from several countries all around there. And in the process of that evening, I told those Baha'is of how we happened to connect with Elsa Fimbo Janssen, the Dane who was the sister of the president of Greenland. And they assured us there was nothing that could be done. They told me that they would so like to help us and so on, but it was impossible. It couldn't be done. So we went to this meeting of all the pioneer Baha'is, and I told the story of how we connected with Elsa Fimbo Janssen. And there was one chap by the name of Pali Bischoff in the audience, and he stood up when I'd finished my talk, and he said, well, I will go to Greenland. And we said, well, how can you go? Oh, well, he said, I'm a Dane, and I have influence, and just leave it to me, and I will get into Greenland, and I'll probably be in there within a month. Well, he got in there, and he became a wonderful Baha'i, a wonderful pioneer, and he kept in close touch with us, and we now have an assembly there in Greenland, and we have a board member in there, and it has just gone along swimmingly. And we look to Shoghi Effendi, who stepped in all these cases and helped us. So long as we put forth some effort, he was behind us with his prayers. And so, friends, that is the story of Greenland. And that was the story of a community who felt that they couldn't possibly do anything in that goal and had given up trying. But it was completed, and it's one of our prime goals that is well and truly established. And we're very happy about that now. I should tell you a story that has been made up by someone I know very well. The question of the age of the hands is one thing that as years go by, and we now have only 10 hands left, and we wonder who is going to be the last one. For a number of years, we would look, or some of us would look all up and down these 26 hands. And year after year we would meet, and there would be some deaths. And finally we began to think, well now, who are the youngest of the hands? And as we looked over the crowd, we saw that Enoch Olinga was one of the two youngest at one time. And then we began to think, well, what would it be like to be the last hand? And I remember being so happy to learn that Enoch was the youngest hand, and next to him was a precious soul by the name of Mohajir, who was one of the youngest. He and Enoch were just about the same age. And so we wondered who that would be. And then other hands began to die off, and there are only 10 left. And as each one passes on, we think, well, what would be the job of the last hand? And then I had a feeling how terrible, how lovely the Baha'is are, how kind they are, and we just have to wait and see. And now you can see how that last hand would be taken from conference to convention, carried on a stretcher. With a wheelchair, and he'd be taken and put on the platform, and everybody would stand, and then this poor hand would and every time I hear of any hand, even having a cold, I ask all my friends to pray for him, because I now realize how one can suddenly lose all one's powers and not be able even to finish the best talk he had ever planned. Ali-Akbar. We will ask Dr. Furutan to come back another time, and in the meantime, you have a real treat in store for you from our next hand, Dr. Varqa.
Mes chers gens amis,
very dear friends,
je suis tellement impressionné par cette atmosphère de l'amour et l'unité que vous avez créée ici, que je ne peux pas trouver des mots pour m'exprimer. La seule chose que je peux dire, c'est que je vous aime tous. Et de cette conférence, je porte un souvenir que je garde durant ma vie dans mon mémoire.
I am so impressed by the wonderful spirit of love and fellowship here that I simply must say that I love all of you.
Vous savez bien qu'au cours de ces 2 dernières années, le Canada, pays sanctifié par le passage de notre maître bien-aimé Abdul Baha, fut pour la 2e fois le siège d'une conférence internationale Bahá'í, mais cette fois destinée aux jeunes.
This, during the last 2 years, Canada, which was blessed by the visit of the Master Abdul Baha, was also blessed by the holding of 2 international conferences. This time, however, it is a youth conference.
Cette conférence, si dynamique par sa nature, a pour but de réunir les jeunes Bahá'í, de les inspirer, de les guider, de les galvaniser, pour qu'ils se préparent pour se lancer dans une autre campagne de proclamation et d'enseignement, et aussi d'élargir la portée de leur service si apprécié pour la cause.
The purpose of this conference is to inspire the youth so that they may arise to teach and to dedicate themselves to the service of the cause of God.
De l'autre côté, cette conférence précède l'année 1985, l'année qui marque le réveil de l'esprit des dirigeants du monde à un sujet très important, la question, le problème des jeunesses, des jeunes du monde.
On the other hand, this conference precedes the beginning of 1985, a year when the leaders of the world are going to be awakened by the serious question of the problems of youth.
Que cette année se manifeste par l'appellation de cette année comme l'année internationale de la jeunesse adoptée par les Nations Unies.
The United Nations has designated this year as the International Year of Youth.
Nous souhaitons la bienvenue pour ces deux occasions qui nous offrent un plan d'action d'une vaste portée et nous offrent une occasion pour les années à venir.
This is a wonderful occasion open to us for the years to come.
Parmi des multitudes de problèmes qui compliquent la vie de notre société, le problème des jeunes jouit d'une grande importance et attire l'attention de non seulement les psychologues, les pédagogues, les sociologues, mais aussi les gouvernements et les États.
The problems of youth are getting a great deal of attention today, not only from sociologists, psychologists, educators, but also from the governments of the world.
D'après les estimations des experts et des démographes des Nations Unies, en 1975, l'effectif des jeunes du monde était d'ordre de 708 millions d'hommes.
In 1975, the youth of the world numbered 738 million.
Et on estime qu'à la fin du siècle, c'est-à-dire dans 16 ans, cet effectif atteindra 1,180 milliard.
By the end of this century, it is estimated that this figure will rise to 1,180 million.
180 million. No. It is not a good news, it is a bad news. Because the problems are very, very great. Mais le taux de croissance est inégalement réparti entre les pays du monde.
But the rate of growth is unequally divided among the countries of the world.
Pour les pays industrialisés, dans lesquels la jeunesse a à sa portée tout ce qui répond à leurs besoins, c'est-à-dire la santé, l'éducation et toute autre chose.
In the industrialized countries, the youth have everything available to them.
Le taux de croissance, c'est seulement 5%.
The rate of growth is only 5%.
Tandis que pour les pays du tiers-monde,
However, in the underdeveloped countries of the world,
comme l'Afrique, l'Asie de mousson, l'Amérique centrale et l'Amérique du Sud, ce taux atteindra 80%.
but in the underdeveloped countries of the world, this rate of growth will reach 80%.
Dans les pays où les jeunes ne peuvent pas répondre à leurs besoins immédiats.
In those countries where the youth cannot satisfy their own needs themselves.
Non seulement ils sont dépourvus des moyens de leur développement économique et social, mais ils sont dépourvus de leurs moyens d'existence. Les moyens d'existence.
Not only do they not have available to them what they need, but they are not able to even supply their means of existence.
Et ça exerce une influence dramatique sur la situation du monde.
And this affects dramatically the situation of the world.
La jeunesse actuelle, c'est une couche sociale agitée, révoltée, angoissée, qui fait face à de multitudes de problèmes. Et dans beaucoup de pays, ils sont engagés dans des actes criminels comme le drogue, comme contrebande et le vol.
This group in society, the youth, is a group full of great distress and agony, and in many parts of the world they are in revolt.
C'est pourquoi l'année internationale de jeunesse peut être considérée comme un véhicule pour les jeunes Bahá'í, pour la jeunesse Bahá'í.
This is why the International Year of the Youth can be so important for the young Baha'is.
Pour démontrer leur participation active dans une campagne qui a pour but le développement, la participation et la paix.
Because they can show their great desire to contribute to development and peace.
Tout récemment, la Maison de justice, étant consciente de la situation actuelle de l'Europe, a écrit une lettre à toutes les assemblées nationales.
Recently, the Universal House of Justice, conscious of the difficulties in Europe, has written a letter to all the national assemblies of the world.
L'original de cette lettre était adressé à une des assemblées nationales de l'Europe.
The original of this letter was addressed to one of the national spiritual assemblies of Europe,
Mais c'était valable pour toutes les assemblées
but
nationales.
it was valid for all national assemblies.
L'essence de cette lettre est de spiritualiser les individus.
The import of the letter was to spiritualize individuals.
Elle a conseillé de prendre les mesures nécessaires d'une auto-spiritualisation.
It counseled the friends to take the necessary steps to spiritualize themselves,
Que chaque personne soit illuminée par les paroles divines.
that each
divines.
person may be illumined by the Word of God.
L'essence de cette lettre s'est tirée par les écrits de Baha'u'llah et d'Abdul Baha.
The meaning of this century is described by the writings of Abdul Baha and Baha'u'llah.
Et ça comprend 6 points.
6 points.
Premièrement, c'est de lire chaque soir, chaque matin, les textes sacrés.
To read the writings each morning and evening,
Parce qu'il y a un pouvoir inimaginable dans les paroles divines.
because there is an unimaginable power in the Word of God.
Derrière chaque mot, il y a un pouvoir.
Behind each word there is a power.
Derrière chaque mot, il y a une vibration qui pénètre dans le cœur.
There is a vibration behind each word which penetrates the heart.
Ce sont des substances nutritives pour notre âme.
It is the nutrients that our soul needs,
Et nous devons profiter de cette nourriture pour fortifier notre âme.
and we must take of this food in order to strengthen our soul.
Lorsque notre âme sera suffisamment nourrie, nous pourrons illuminer
When our souls are sufficiently nourished, we will be able to illumine the others
et réussir à changer les cœurs.
and to succeed in changing the hearts.
Deuxième, ce sont les prières obligatoires
Secondly, the obligatory prayers,
pour avoir une communication directe avec Baha'u'llah.
in order to have a direct communication with Baha'u'llah,
Lui demander sa bénédiction, sa confirmation.
to ask him for his benediction and his confirmations.
Autant que notre cœur sera pur, il absorbe les rayons divins.
As our hearts are pure, they are able to absorb the divine light.
Ne croyez pas que cette communication, c'est difficile à établir.
Do not believe that this communication is difficult to establish.
Si nous concentrons notre idée vers Baha'u'llah, nous arrivons.
If we concentrate our minds towards Baha'u'llah, we will succeed.
Je crois que j'ai reçu une note que le temps est fini, mais je vais vous demander quelques minutes seulement pour vous raconter une histoire qui a été passée au temps d'Abdul Baha.
I have received a note that I must end my talk, but I want to take a few minutes to tell one short story.
Pour voir que la communication entre les âmes, c'est possible.
To show you that communication between souls is possible.
Et évidemment, on peut communiquer avec Baha'u'llah par l'âme.
Evidently, by the soul, one can communicate with Baha'u'llah.
En 1912, mon père était en compagnie d'Abdul Baha dans son voyage aux États-Unis.
In 1912, my father accompanied Abdul Baha in his trip to the United States.
Et il était le traducteur d'Abdul Baha dans ses discours.
And he was Abdul Baha's translator.
Il y a un jour que la veille, Abdul Baha a donné un discours dans un des églises.
The night before, Abdul Baha had given a talk in one of the churches.
Un monsieur était venu pour voir Abdul Baha
A man came to see Abdul Baha,
et il m'a demandé de prendre un rendez-vous pour être en présence d'Abdul Baha et lui parler avec la langue de cœur.
and he asked for an appointment to see Abdul Baha and to speak to him with the language of the heart, in the language of the heart.
Abdul Baha demandait de mon père, qu'est-ce qu'il demande?
Abdul Baha said to my father, what is he asking?
Cette demande était tellement bizarre pour mon père qu'il n'osait pas de dire à Abdul Baha tout ce qu'il a demandé.
This request was so strange to my father that he proceeded to tell Abdul Baha all that the man had asked.
Abdul Baha lui dit, dis tout ce qu'il a demandé.
What?
Abdul Baha a dit à mon père de lui raconter tout ce qu'il a dit.
Abdul Baha said to my father to tell him all that the man said.
Et mon père lui a raconté que cet homme demande d'être en votre présence et de vous communiquer avec l'esprit, avec la langue du cœur.
And my father answered Abdul Baha in saying that this man desires to be in your presence and to communicate by the language of the heart.
Abdul Baha accepta et dit à mon père de donne-lui un rendez-vous.
Abdul Baha accepted and said to my father, give him an appointment.
Le jour, l'homme était venu et mon père la guida dans la chambre d'Abdul Baha.
In the following day, the man arrived and my father showed him to the room of Abdul Baha.
Il dit, moi aussi, je voudrais être présent pour voir qu'est-ce qui se passe, mais Abdul Baha, avec un sourire, m'a dit, sous la protection de Dieu.
My father wanted to be present and asked Abdul Baha if it was possible, and Abdul Baha said,
Sous la protection de Dieu.
under the protection of God.
Cette expression sous la protection de Dieu, c'est la traduction d'une phrase que pour congédier une personne, on dit fi amanallah, c'est-à-dire sous la protection de Dieu va.
This expression, under the protection of God, means that you may leave.
Donc mon père a sorti de la chambre
Therefore, my father left the room,
et dit, moi je voudrais savoir qu'est-ce qui se passe.
but he wanted to know what happened.
Après quelque temps, l'homme a sorti et il essuyait son visage parce qu'il ruisselait de larmes.
After a while, the man left the room with a great smile on his face and tears running down from his eyes.
Mon père lui a demandé qu'est-ce qui s'est passé.
My father asked him, what happened?
L'homme a dit, écoute, hier soir, j'ai assisté à la conférence d'Abdul Baha.
The man said, yesterday evening I attended the talk of Abdul Baha.
Le traducteur, qui est très bien connu chez nous, il traduisait très bien.
The translator, very well known, translated very well.
Moi, je connais pas le langage d'Abdul Baha, mais quand il parlait, mon âme comprenait.
I did not understand the language Abdul Baha spoke, but when he spoke, my heart understood.
Mais quand l'homme traduisait, je sentais que les mots se baissaient et se baissaient.
But when the translator translated the words of Abdul Baha, I felt my heart getting lower and lower.
Non, les mots, les phrases qu'il prononçait, c'était ne pas.
Oh, excuse me. The sentences that he pronounced were getting lower and lower.
C'est pour ça qu'aujourd'hui, je suis venu pour communiquer directement avec Abdul Baha par l'âme.
That is why now I said I wanted to come to communicate directly by the heart.
Alors mon père dit, comment cette communication a été établie?
My father asked, how was this communication established?
Il a dit, Abdul Baha m'a pris par les mains, il m'a regardé, il m'a souri, et je sens que mon cœur est plein et satisfait.
And I said that Abdul Baha took my hands, looked into my face, and smiled, and I felt again this communication of the heart.
Et c'est tout ce que je désire.
And that is all.
Donc on peut communiquer avec Baha'u'llah par cette voie.
Therefore, we can communicate with Baha'u'llah by this means,
Par les prières.
by prayer.
Et la guidance et la réponse de Baha'u'llah viennent par l'inspiration.
And direction comes from Abdul Baha by inspiration, from Baha'u'llah by inspiration.
Troisième point,
The third point,
the third is meditation. Prayerful meditation. After our acquaintance with the words of God and established the communication with Baha'u'llah to attract his confirmation, his blessing, they are related together, these 3 points related together. We should meditate prayerfully with supplication to better understanding of the meaning of the words of God, better understanding of teaching. As we are deep in our understanding, we are more illuminated by the essence of the faith. Don't think that by once or twice reading the writings it is enough. There's an ocean. You cannot reach in the bottom of this ocean. You cannot reach it because the essence is very, very deep. Beyond of our understanding, only the way that we have to reach approximately a level of that is to deepen ourselves in the writings. You are here, the name of the most learned historian of the faith was mentioned by our beloved hand of the cross, Furutan. Abul Faza'il, the father of knowledge. Abul Faza'il has taught 100 times I read the book of certitude. Each time I found something new in this book. And if he continued at his time to read 100 more, also he found something more news and more news, more deep and more deep and more deep. It's not finished. There's the ocean, unlimited. That is the mystery of God. Abdul Baha stated that by meditation we ask questions from our soul, our mind, and we are answered by our soul through this pure meditation. That's why we should recur to this remedy, to meditate, not to read and think to other things, to be deep in the writing and have a good understanding about that. Indeed, it will not finish, but every day that we continue that, more and more we are deep and our understanding will grow. The fourth point is to reflect the teaching and the essence of the faith in our daily life, our behavior. This aim, the fourth point, is the most important. If we establish this communication with Baha'u'llah, we meditate, and the result is not reflected in our behavior, and our behaviors have not changed, it is useful. The only distinction that we have from the others is our behavior. And you know how important it is in these days. You know, 250 people, 2,500 people are gathering here. Your behavior attracts the others, and they extol your behavior. They are not like the others. There are some special people gathering here. That's the teaching. You taught by your behavior. This is the most important way of teaching, to reflect the teaching. As you read more and more, your behavior, your conduct will be changed and will attract everybody to you, and they know that you are Baha'i. I don't know how you have the experience in that field, but in Iran, that they use for a long time, they are educated in Baha'i atmosphere, in Baha'i environment. Their conduct, their behavior is quite different with the others. When they come to a gathering, everybody knows that they are Baha'i, they are some special. I have an experience myself in this field. Once at Tehran University, in my course, at the beginning of the year, a scholar year, I went to my class. 60 people, 60 youths were in the first class. Between these, I found a shining face, a smiling face, this affection, this love, quite different with the others. I thought to myself, he should be Baha'i. When I asked the name of the students, his name was a Baha'i name. Maybe you're surprised, what is Baha'i name? Because you used to have the common name with the others, as John, David, Joseph, like that. But in Arabia and Persia, that the people are familiar with the writings, they took the name of the people from the writings. And every name, each name has a meaning. The Baha'i name has a Baha'i meaning. The attribute of God, qualification of God, some special spiritual meaning. His name was that. When my class was finished, I went in my office and I called him. I asked him, are you Baha'i? He smiled and said, yes. I was not surprised because from the first time I recognized him. When an ordinary people, a farmer, for the first time, come to a village, by his manner of speaking, by his comportment, by his attributes, soon he is recognized as a Baha'i. By his affection, helpfulness, the people knows that he is something else. And this qualification is due to the teaching, to the reflection of the teaching in our life. That is the power of the Word of God. Could penetrate in the hearts and transform the hearts of the people. As we are familiar with the Word of God, it has this power to change of familiarity with the writings to belief and change the belief to certitude. And the highest level of certitude, because certitude has some degrees. The highest level is when you are a part of it, when you are a part of the faith. That is the highest level of certitude. And that is due to the study of the writings and reflect the writings in your acts. Put it in the acts. That is the aim of the Baha'i faith, to put the writing, the teaching of Baha'u'llah in the writings, in action, to act it. And after that, the fifth one is to teach the faith. They are related together. Teaching the faith comes after. Indeed, between you, there is many people that have many good experience in teaching. Teaching the faith is not so difficult job, because it is not our job. To bring the heart of the people towards God is not our job. It is the mercy of God. God could change the heart. We are only the tools and instruments in the hands of God. We sow the seeds. We irrigate the seeds. But the record is not to us. It is due to the will of God. That's why the way of the belief of the people is different. That is the words of Muhammad, that the way towards God is in the number of the people. If we have 4 billion people in our planet, there is 4 billion ways towards God. In my trips to the Baha'i community, sometimes I had the opportunity to ask the people how you become Baha'i. I couldn't find 2 people that knows the faith, enrolled in the faith in the same way. For one person, one word is sufficient. One word. For one person to study some books is sufficient. A piece of music, for example, Baha'i song is sufficient for people. There is 1,000 and 1,000 ways to touch the heart of people and attract them to the faith. Once in an island I heard somebody told me this story, that we have a Baha'i in our community, and he knows the face by a special way. When he was a child, in their village or in their city, it was an old lady. Each Sunday, she came to the square with some candies and asked the children to come to her and pronounce the word Baha'u'llah only. And this child went only for the candy, not for to pronounce exactly the name of Baha'u'llah. Each Sunday he went to take the candy. And after some time, the lady went, and the child left the city and went to another city. After some time, he saw an announcement about the Baha'i face. He remembered that in his childhood he knew this name. He looked after that, and finally he found a way. He became a Baha'i. He wrote himself. Through a simple way to pronounce in the childhood, to pronounce the name of Baha'u'llah. It was a seed sown in his heart. He has not neglected. And after that, the record came later after that. I heard in France, a lady who became Baha'i, she said, one day I was in a supermarket, and it was very crowded. I was in the crowd. An old lady approached me and said, there is some confidential thing that I want to say. Take this book. It was a Baha'i book. The Christ has come, but don't tell to anybody. That is very, very confidential. And she disappeared. She disappeared. The lady took the book, studied the book, and looked after the address of the Baha'is and found it. Each one of you, I think, you are in the field of teaching, you witness, you saw such a wonderful history by this very, very simple things. Don't think that you are obliged to study very deeply the faith to teach. These deepening in the faith is for your spiritual growth. But the teaching is not that. The teaching is to spread the seed that the world is familiar with the word, with the name of Baha'u'llah. That is the essential. An ordinary people and illiterate people could teach the faith. It depends on the illumination of the heart. The man that we mentioned his name, Abul Faza'il, the most erudite in the faith, the most knowledgeable man in the faith. He knew the faith through an illiterate man. His teacher was illiterate. And Abul Faza'il was a great mullah. The difference between these two, such a difference. But he was taught by an illiterate man. I don't know that it was the same Abul Faza'il or another mullah, another high-ranking priest, that he was arguing with a simple, ordinary Baha'i. And in their discussion, he told the man, Baha'i, I am a learned man, and you are illiterate. How you can convince me to do your faith? You know what he replied? He said, yes, I am very inferior to you. I am illiterate. I am like a stone thrown in the desert. And you are like a jewel kept in a very nice box. But when the sun rises, that is the stone that receives the light of sun. But the jewel stays in the darkness. That is the argument and the raisonnement. What is raisonnement? I don't know. That is the proof of an illiterate Baha'i. That is the essential is the heart. Everything that comes out from the heart influences the heart of the people. That is the way of teaching. From the beginning, I disadvantaged until now, the teaching is in the top of all Baha'i activity. the letter of living in their time, they taught the face. Abdul Baha make the travel, the trip, everywhere, in Europe, in America, in Canada, in Egypt, taught the face. All the teachers travel around the world and taught the face. Teaching the face is the top of our activity. And everybody could do this, even the children. The children could do this. So you should keep in mind that all your efforts should be converged to the teaching of the faith. And I am sure by this spirit that we got from this conference, the teaching work will go ahead very, very soon. And the 6th point is selfless service to humanity. In your job, in your faculty, everywhere that you are, you can serve heartily the people. That is the final point of our living, to serve the humanity, to unite the humanity. With this selflessness, without expecting any reward from that, from our service. And that is the 6th point that I think every Baha'i should bring in his consideration, study there, and put in the paper to see each day these 6 points and put into action. And that is the only shield that we have in this agitated world that we have now. You see, dear friends, now we approach the 2,000 years after Jesus Christ. At the beginning of his dispensation, few ordinary people raised for the promulgation of the faith of God. And now that is the result. They brought into being a civilization, a brilliant civilization of Christianity. And you know the history during these 2,000. And now, the soldier of Baha'u'llah, if the army of light rise with all your potentiality, with all your knowledge, you can find the world in very, very soon. Very, very soon. I hope that confirmation of Baha'u'llah be always with you, dear friends. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thanks for listening. If you'd like to listen to more content on the Oneness Movement, be sure to subscribe and leave a comment. See you next time.